Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebecca Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebecca Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel that I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill our many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide as much knowledge, practices, and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this. Hello, encouragers. On today's podcast, I've got a special treat for you. 2 people that I've seriously met for only about 40 minutes of my life, but made a large impact in one of those promptings from God that I thought, okay, yeah, you're totally right. We're going to have them on the podcast. They have a very unique story in how they are raising their family in the world today and what they're doing for a living. And I always like to tell you guys about their alternative ways than just doing the 8-to-5 job, and how we're all doing, even if we're not doing the 8-to-5 job, the different ways that we are raising our children or doing our jobs and making it more flexible to prioritize things that as Christians we want to prioritize, and the world perhaps tells us different things that need to be prioritized. Now, believe me, we all get it wrong because we're all sinners and we like to get things done as well. But I'd love for us to get different examples outside of even myself of what we're doing that we're getting some momentum on and that is also praiseworthy. So I have got awesome guests on today. Please welcome Joshua and Brittany Sopko.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and you guys got to say your last name because this could be a funny moment if I totally got it wrong. Is it as simple as it sounds?
It is. You did perfect. It's just like Shopko without the H.
Okay. That is great. I like that. Okay, so Joshua and I met because he went to listen to me at A Million Cups. And if you're not familiar with Million Cups, I kind of call it like you get 6 minutes to tell people about your business, some of your story, how you're doing business. You can pick a subject and you get to talk about it for 6 minutes is what they say, and then answer questions. And they meet in like kind of random places, museums and coffee shops. And so I volunteered to do one of those. If you want to get better at speaking, they're a good way to do that. And it's a good way to meet lots of other people. And I suppose if we went to 1 Million Cups website, I would be totally off, but this is my impression of it. And it's really fun and you get to meet a lot of cool people. So I spoke on, I think I've done it a couple of different times, but that time I just talked a little bit about my story and a lot of emphasis on my podcast and my book. And that's when Joshua got to hear me speak. So you tell me the rest from there.
Yeah, I remember you telling the story about how you cut your curtains down in your business, and that's what resonated with me. And I thought, wow, like that's like the true heart of an entrepreneur. And so that's what really resonated with me. And that's why I reached out to you to be on my Sioux Falls Startup Stories podcast.
Yes. Okay. And I want to talk about your podcast as well. Tell us a little bit here, Joshua and Brittany, of your family makeup, where you're from and what you're doing.
So we have 3 kids right now, and I'm currently pregnant with our 4th, who's due in January. Our oldest is 5, and then our youngest is 2. So we're kind of a little bit all over the place. And when we add this 4th, it's going to be a lot of chaos, but it's fun. And in the past year, we've also decided to open up a retail store where I make a lot of bath and body products and herbal remedies. And I'm studying to become an herbalist. So that's really just about like using the herbs. And we really believe that God provided a lot of these plants to us to heal our bodies and really not like replace modern medicine, but there's a lot of things that can be definitely treated and help in some cases even better than what modern medicine can with some of these herbs. So we own a retail store. We have 4 kids, and then we're also doing kind of an untraditional style of homeschooling, which our oldest is 5. So she would technically start kindergarten this year, would be her first year. So we're not full on deep in that yet, but we're going to be getting there very quickly.
Joshua, tell me a little bit about your podcast.
I have a podcast that I run. It's called Sioux Falls Startup Stories. And my podcast is really geared toward the entrepreneurial startup story. So I focus on interviewing local Sioux Falls or Sioux Falls area entrepreneurs and capturing like their transition story from when they went to a full-time career or steady income to starting and launching a business and company. And the reason why I started that podcast was a couple of years ago, I was starting a business And I thought, it's so easy to just Google the things to start a business. You can just Google how to get your tax ID and, Google how to find a lease and a space and all of those things. But really what you can't Google and figure out is how to manage life and the stress and the emotions that come with starting a business. So during that time of me starting a business, I reached out to a couple entrepreneurs just to get their advice and their opinions on things. And every time I left those conversations, I thought, man, this was so powerful and so impactful in my business or in my life that I wanted to share these stories. And so that's why I launched the Sioux Falls Startup Stories podcast.
And it's so good the way that you guys, as you're listening to this podcast, love you dearly, but this is my second gig, the podcast. I have the business, Rebecca Scott Designs. So when you go to listen to this podcast, which you will be doing, Sioux Falls Startup is the full name of the podcast, correct, Joshua?
The podcast is Sioux Falls Startup Stories. We have a sponsor. It's called Startup Sioux Falls is our sponsor. And this gets really convoluted, but the website is siouxfalls.eco/podcast is where you can find all the stuff for that.
Okay, awesome. And don't worry, encouragers, we'll put all of that on the show notes so that you guys can find him. But the way that he does it is really articulate and beautiful, the way that he melds the interview together and writes a story for it to be really well communicated to the listener. So kudos to you. Okay, I love how Brittany says casually, yep, I'm going to have 4 under 5 or 5 and under. I run a retail store, which I got to tell you my version of that. And we are going to be unschooling, which is, we'll have you explain it. Like all these things are just in your life. I'm like, that's fly. Oh, and I'm studying to be an herbalist. Yeah. Everybody on the podcast is going, whoa. But I have to tell you something. So after we got done interviewing, Josh and I got done interviewing upstairs, we came downstairs and he said, do you want to see the store? And I was like, yeah, I can't leave without seeing the store. And it's called the Juniper Apothecary. And it is gorgeous. And I can't even explain to you that it belongs in downtown Chicago. It belongs in New York. And here we have it in cozy, awesome Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The light from not even walking in the door that comes out of this space will grip you. It is the most beautiful, peaceful, light-filled retail space I pretty much have seen in this Midwest area. And so kudos to you guys for setting this up, because I know that you have poured, if you're like all entrepreneurs, poured all of this energy and this thought into it, but it is just beautiful. And the products are, amazing. I bought stuff right away, you guys. I bought bath bombs that are incredible. I bought a cream for my son in football that's got magnesium in it, and they were able to tell me I didn't even ask you guys, which I'm sure if I did, you guys would have awesomely told me all the products that I needed to have. So I want to talk about that in the podcast as well. But the cream has worked really good to draw out Gus's sore muscles with football. And I love the approach of being able to, that you're not anti-medicine, like you talked about briefly, Brittany, but that God does give us all these amazing products and spices and things so that we can use plants, so that we can use them to help aid us in healing and helping our bodies.
Well, a lot of them are spices too. So you're not incorrect when you say that. They're herbs and spices. They're all pretty much the same thing.
Okay, awesome. I just feel better when I buy these products and I know the maker. So going in there, and the fact that you're studying herbs is amazing as well, so that the education behind it backs up what she is doing it's just awesome. But so first, you guys, everybody go to the Juniper Apothecary, find them on Facebook and find them on the website. We will put all of those in the show notes, but you guys have got to get these products in your hand. They're amazing. Brittany and Joshua, tell me about what made you start the retail store, Juniper Apothecary. Like, was this something in your early married years that you just started playing around with, or how did that go?
Honestly, when we first got married, I was wanting to open up a cupcake shop. We got married 8 years ago, almost 8. And so cupcakes were just starting. Like, there was Oh My Cupcakes in town, which we loved them. But so I love to bake. And so I really wanted to open up a cupcake store. So we really tried to pursue that, and things just didn't pan out right. And then we got married, and about a year after we got married, I had our first child, and I really wanted to just stay home. So I started staying home, and then we had another baby 15 months after our first one, and I started making bath bombs for them. And we actually Shelly from Elegant Mommy was really kind of the pushing force behind me making bath bombs. So she wanted to put them in her store. And so I started selling to her, and then we had a lot of people that wanted to get them. And so I was like, oh, well, we could totally do a store with this. It was actually Josh's idea to do the store. So we could totally do a store with this and start selling these natural bath bombs to people. So it really started with bath bombs, and then I just kind of expanded from there. But a lot of like looking at ingredients and trying to use more natural products really started when we had our first baby 5 years ago, because that kind of, I think that change happens for a lot of moms, that once you become a mom, you kind of start looking at all the junk that's in everything, because you would just want to do what's right by your kids and the best you can. And you just start to, once you kind of go down the rabbit hole once, like mine personally was cloth diapers. I started looking at the chemicals that were in standard diapers, and I chose the cloth diaper. And then we kind of just went from there and went down the rabbit hole into all of these other things that we started doing.
That is awesome. And that's kind of how it starts. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to pick one little area and I'm going to work on that. Like I'm going to make awesome bath bombs. And then you start reading the back of the diapers and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Because I think it's a lot of us can relate to this pure baby. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess with anything. This is like the most beautiful creation ever. And so I love learning about what we can do to keep it as much of God's awesomeness as possible.
Exactly.
So tell me, why did you name it the Juniper Apothecary?
Well, I honestly, I just liked the name Juniper a lot, and we've kind of gone through a little bit of, not really, I guess kind of an identity crisis. When we opened in the mall, in the Empire Mall, last year in August, so August of 2018, and we were called Juniper Bath and Body there, because I did a lot of bath and body products. And that's what we just did in the mall. And then we kind of, after the Christmas season came about, I really felt like I was losing what I had started the business for. I had a lot of customers that were wanting like the bath bombs that turn your bath bomb complete glitter or make the bath water a really cool color, which are great. But it's just not something that I don't want to use dyes in my products or even on my children. So I just couldn't, I felt like I was losing what I started the business for. So we made the decision that we wanted to move out of the mall, and our space downtown opened up. Really kind of a God thing how that all happened. But so we moved downtown, and then we're like, well, we're kind of getting more into using herbs and infusing herbs inside of some of our products. So we should maybe think about changing our name. And apothecary is something that I guess I kind of had seen around online a little bit, and it really describes what we are as a business, because I'll let Josh kind of explain what this is, because he's better at it, at explaining what the actual definition of apothecary is.
Okay. So apothecary, I'm into history a lot. And so when we're kind of researching the name apothecary and like, well, what is it? What does it mean? Is that really a good fit and a good description for our business? An apothecary is basically an old school pharmacy, and it dates back all the way to like ancient Chinese times. And in early America in the 16 and 1700s, an apothecary was set up where the husband was essentially the doctor, and then the wife was the maker of all the medicines and the products, so that she would go out and find the herbs and the spices and the ingredients to make the creams, the salves, the oils, and all of those things. And the husband and wife would work together to diagnose a patient and be able to administer these stuff. And we thought, wow, that's incredible, because that's basically what we do. My wife makes the stuff, and I like to sell that stuff to people and be able to help point them in the right direction for these things. So when we kind of read that history of apothecary, it's like this fits perfectly for who we are and what our business is really described as.
I love the history behind this, and it totally, I'm telling you guys, it penetrates you from the moment you're outside the door coming in, just the wholeness of what you guys are doing. It's just amazing. Let me ask a few things about the products, and then I want to ask a little bit more about raising your kids. Brittany, what would you say, well, and Joshua also, like if I went in there, think busy mom, sort of, dabbing into the dye-free family, artificial-free family, but maybe they're not, totally on as educated as you guys awesomely get to be. But what would you say walking in there would be the top 5 products that they should take home that we use kind of on a weekly basis when you have kids in this world?
That's a really good question because that's kind of where we want to be as a business. I don't ever want to be a store that you feel like you have to be a certain level of natural or crunchy to walk through our door. Like, we really want to be just a wholesome place that, hey, no matter where you are in your journey, we can either offer you more knowledge if that's what you're looking for, or even, hey, I just need something to help my kids sleep at night. What do you got to try? And so what I would say the best, my thing that we personally use on our kids every night is our Magnesium sleep cream. So it's infused with a couple different herbs, I think lavender and dandelion, which are both have like sleep properties to kind of help you relax and fall asleep at night. And then the magnesium as well. Most of us here especially in South Dakota and just in general, are really lacking in magnesium. And so that can kind of present itself in a lot of different ways. For our son, our 4-year-old, he is really, really restless when he goes to sleep at night. And he does not, it takes him a long time to fall asleep. So we put it on his legs at night, and within 5 minutes, he has been passed out every single night, which is really, really nice because it used to be like a half-hour process. So that's something that's it's just like a lotion that you can rub on. We typically rub it on their legs. It has essential oils in it that are known to kind of help soothe and relax and fall asleep. So that would be my number one thing that I would say. Otherwise, we kind of have a good roll or a good variety of essential oil rollers, which kind of, depending on what you're looking for, we have like a sniffle one that kind of helps when your kids have colds, especially coming into this cold and flu season, that you just rub on their chest, and it kind of helps open up their airways and just helps them breathe a little bit better when they're dealing with those colds that are inevitably going to happen this winter. And then I guess, what else? What else would you say?
Another one of our flagship products is our sore muscle cream, or our Miracle Muscle Cream. We also have a sore muscle balm too. But that it's another magnesium cream. So we have a whole line of magnesium creams. We have a sleep cream, a pregnancy cream, Miracle Muscles cream, and then just a regular straight up magnesium cream. So as Brittany kind of mentioned, we have magnesium is a really good natural substance or additive that we need in our diets that we typically don't get always. And absorbing it, so a lot of people take magnesium supplements. Absorbing magnesium through your skin is a little bit different and unique, and it treats our bodies in a little bit different way. So our Miracle Muscle Cream is another flagship product that really helps with muscle recovery. And that's the product that you bought for your son who plays football. And when I was running and training for a marathon, this is how it got its name, actually. A couple of years ago, I was running training for a marathon. And so, every weekend was long runs, a 10, 15, 20-mile run. And then done and just be completely exhausted. My muscle, I couldn't walk the next day. I was really, really hard. And so she's like, well, you should try, a lot of people use Epsom salt. She's like, we should try getting you into some magnesium salt baths and try this magnesium cream that I came up with. And I put that on, and it was night and day difference. I mean, from absolute everything. And I put it on that first night, and the next day I woke up and I said, we got to call this stuff Miracle Muscles because this is a dream for me. So that's another big flagship product that we have for sure.
Awesome. Now, when you say flagship, teach us what that means.
It's our bestseller, I guess I would say. It's the one that most people recommend to everybody else. We get a lot of people that come in and say, and my friend recommended, they got some muscle cream and they said it's been amazing and it really helps them out. And so that's kind of like our I call it our flagship product. It's the one that people come in the most for. There's a few other products like that too, but that's one of my favorites, I guess.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, these are all of the above. And admittedly, as a mother, Brittany, 30 minutes down to 5 minutes. Sign me up. Where where is this in the store so that they're less restless and less trips back and forth into the bedroom. And I think I'm going to start, I was just thinking of my son, typical of a mother, I'm like, okay, well, he's got sore muscles, but the back of my legs hurt frequently because the encouragers know how much I exercise and I'm big into burpees and squats and like military style. Like if it involves a crossover step, this woman is out. Like I can't do that. It has to be just the hard stuff. So the back of my legs just ache. So I'm thinking I'm going to start trying this on the back of my legs.
Yeah, it would totally help you. I developed a pregnancy one because I get really bad like muscle cramps in the middle of the night when I'm pregnant. I'll just like stretch and all of a sudden like Charlie horses. So I developed a pregnancy version of it, and that I rub on my legs at night, and that definitely helps too. So we kind of have like four different lines, almost like a kid safe one, the one that's geared towards muscles, and then we just have a plain magnesium cream, so it's unscented for people that kind of struggle with scents or just want just the magnesium benefits, and then the pregnancy one too. And that's a fairly recent development that I've kind of done all the 4 different ones, and just they're all with different herbs and different things that are geared more towards help with specific styles of things.
Okay, everybody, we get it. We got to get some help. Let's get in there. Okay, so tell us a little bit. Now, you mentioned your oldest would be going to kindergarten or is in kindergarten, but you guys are doing something called unschooling. What made you go this route, and explain it to us a little bit?
Sure. So unschooling is, there's a lot of different forms of unschooling. When most people will look at our daughter and they'll say, oh, you should be starting school soon, or shouldn't you be in school, or where do you go to school? Mm-hmm. And we just mostly tell people we just homeschool because it's easier. People that are in the homeschooling world, though, will inevitably ask, oh, well, what curriculum do you use? And then we have to have the conversation, well, we are actually doing something called unschooling, and more specifically, we do a form of radical unschooling. So it is a curriculum-free, child-led learning environment where we really pay attention to what our kids are interested in, and we do everything in our power to simply foster that environment and say, oh, I see you're interested in colors. Let's get you a lot of colors and experiment with, do you want to draw? Do you want to color pictures? Like, where do you want to take this creation that you are interested in? And we just let them lead the way and just empower them to do that. And so when they're young, it's easier to do that. And as they get older, we'll just simply continue to advance them in those things. So as they get older and want to explore baking more, like our 5-year-old daughter is just, when she grows up, she says she wants to be a baker. And so when we make pancakes in the morning, she comes in, can I make pancakes? It's like, absolutely. So then we go through the step of, okay, where is the recipe book? So then she learns problem solving in that very step, because she knows the recipe book is in the top cabinet on the left-hand side. So she has to figure out, well, I need to get a chair and I need to crawl up there and get the recipe book. And then she needs to know which color the recipe book is. And then we say, okay, well, where's the pancake recipe? So then she's learning how to read and how to identify pictures and all of that stuff. And then we go through the recipes. This is how you read a recipe. So you can see that's the unschooling environment that we are doing with our kids. And that may change, but right now that's the direction that we want to take them. We just let them tell us what they're interested in, and we just foster that environment and try and empower them in every way that we can to continue to pursue that interest.
I love it, because there's so many of us that are trying to do the best that we can with everything that is being thrown at us, but I really like the idea that it is child-led, and I involve my girls especially love the baking and the sewing. I involve them as much as possible, even though it does get a little messy. But I love that it's led by them, and then they get curious by themselves. So it's like so much less forceful. You are going to learn how to do this. It's just like they have a natural interest in it, so they would desire to read because they're like, I want to be able to make pancakes. So I need to know how to read.
That's exactly right. And it really boils down to the fact that when you empower them to take on their own education, then they get to own it versus saying, okay, it is now 10 o'clock. We need to stop whatever it is you're doing and start reading. And they say, well, I'm not done with what I'm doing. I don't want to read. How effective is their education really going to be in that moment when they are not interested in doing whatever it is that they're expected to do in that moment? And again, when they're young, that's extremely hard for a kid to switch gears and say, okay, so I'm not doing this, which I was interested in, and now I'm doing something that I'm not interested in. It just really starts to break down their ability to actually want to absorb what they're learning. So this is a way to really empower them and let them own their own education and make their own decisions and let them fail on their own, because kids can fail and it's no big deal to them. They pick right back up and keep going. So the more that we can foster that environment, the more resilient they'll end up being as they get older.
Mm-hmm. And like our oldest two, they go to a play school is what it's called. It's basically like a preschool, and it's in Sioux Falls, and she just runs it out of her home. It's called Kaleidoscope Play School, and it has been amazing for them. Like we've never sat down and taught our children letters or how to write their name, but she simply fosters an environment like we 100% believe in too, about really just following the child's lead. And so a lot of times she'll have, like last week she had a trampoline out, and the kids there was one trampoline and the kids needed to take turns as to who gets the turn on the trampoline. Well, she has a sign-up list. So if they want to go on the trampoline, they need to write their name down on their sign-up list. And our 4-year-old, he knows how to make his B in his name, but he doesn't really have an interest in writing anything else. So he wanted to go down the trampoline. So she helped him and did the, I'll write and then you copy when I write type method. And he wrote his name on the list to sign up for the trampoline. And he was so proud of himself. There's a video of him on Facebook of him doing it. And it's just the cutest thing as to how proud they are that I put my name on this list for the trampoline because I wanted to, not because it was time. I'm 4 years old. I need to know how to write my name. It's because I wanted to write my name for this thing.
Oh, that's cool. I just like that we get to tell people that there are different ways other than kind of like what we're talking about with sometimes education, when they're shoving it down our throats is like, you need to work an 8-to-5 job. You need to have both of you working outside of the home. You have to do this and this and this. It's nice to have different versions and different alternatives to what we sometimes, I think our heart is leading us to, but we're afraid because we've never heard any other version. And so by hearing the other versions of what other families are doing, it allows us to listen to that small whisper of, maybe we won't be able to do the unschooling, but maybe we can do the homeschooling, or maybe we don't have to have a store in the mall selling stuff that we don't like. But what happens if we do listen to the small whisper that says there's still a place for me to sell these products and to help people out? So, and like you said, the store opened up in a God-led way. I just want to keep saying my most important thing that I always encourage the encouragers to have is to have routines, to definitely have methods, but it doesn't have to be the methods of, I don't want to say of the world, because I think that's probably too strong of a term, but it doesn't always have to be mainstream. Because I don't doubt that with everything that you guys are running, a podcast, a retail store, and raising your kids with the unschooling, that you guys don't have methods that are working. You have rhythms in your life to get all of this accomplished, correct?
Yeah, we try. We definitely try.
Listen, we try.
Not as organized as what I would like. A lot of days are chaos, and we're still trying to work on a schedule as our life changes. Like, come in November, we're going to be going back to the mall for a kiosk. So now, we're torn between two places, and we're going to kind of have an employee, and how do we manage that? And different times doing that as well is going to be a change for us. And I feel like there's always something that's changing that we have to change up our schedule and our plans for what our expectations are for the day. But yeah we definitely try.
I love it. Well, and I'm always clear to use lots of grace too. When your kids are under a certain age, you got to get realistic about what can be accomplished. Prioritize the top 3 things, and the rest you're going to have to fill in the gaps with some things, because you just got to get real about what can. I don't doubt that the older my own children became, the more I was able to accomplish. But I was glad that I had the groundwork and the know-how to do in the moment what I needed to when they were young. Yeah,
exactly. That's definitely something I've found and learned, and really try to, all right, this is what we have to get done. Everything else is a bonus if I get that done for the day too.
Right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast and telling us all about your products and your family's alternative ways. You guys have to listen to the podcast. Joshua was telling me, and I'm probably revealing something, but Brittany and Joshua are recording a podcast called The Uncommon Life, correct?
Actually, it's called Wildly Uncommon.
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's even better.
It is about living an uncommon life. And so what you touched on earlier is really what our podcast is all about. It's about bringing people along our journey and just giving people alternatives about different ways that they can do their life. And like Brittany said, we never want it to be a place where, I'm not crunchy enough, or I'm not natural enough, or I don't live an alternative enough lifestyle. And that's not what our podcast is about. Our podcast is really about, hey, there's different ways to do things. And, even if you are in public education, because not everybody can unschool and not everybody can homeschool, but there's ways in public education that you can bring about new conversations to your kid to let them empower their education and say, you know what, here's what you learned at school. Let's try something at home that's a little bit different that will let them own what they did in school a little bit. If they learn math, you can say, well, what's going on at home that we can apply some of these principles and try and find something that they're really excited about. And that brings in unschooling, even though they're going to a public school, or you're homeschooling and you can mix it up. And it's the same thing with living a lifestyle with different natural products. Like, well, we do eat some crappy foods and we do live this kind of lifestyle, but hey, you know what? I want to try this magnesium cream instead of taking, synthetic supplements or the medication that I've been on. So that's what our podcast is really geared towards, just opening up that conversation to say, hey, there are alternative ways to live your life that we think are maybe safer and healthier and natural and just more fun and more experiential.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Perfect. Direct us again, Joshua, where we should go to find your podcast and also the store.
So our store is located on 8th and Railroad in downtown Sioux Falls. If you know where the downtown scene is, it's right next to Remedy Brewing Company, 8th and Railroad Center. We're right on the boardwalk on the very south end. Big purple sign says Juniper Apothecary. We also have our website, juniperapothecary.com. So you can check us out there. Our website is always a work in progress. It seems to be like the last thing that we get to at the end of the week. So Facebook and Instagram are also great ways to get a hold of us online too. We also have, our Wildly Uncommon podcast, it hasn't officially launched yet. We're just recording the first couple episodes now. So I'm not sure where we're going to put that at yet. There'll be a link on our website somewhere. Otherwise, we will have the domain wildlyuncommon.com. So if you go there, you'll find something that'll be there, some information and resources as we put that stuff up. And then I also have my business podcast that I run called Sioux Falls Startup Stories, and you can find that one at siouxfalls.eco/podcast. So you have to put all that in the show notes because that was a whole lot of stuff.
Yep, we totally will. We will direct them where to go. But thank you for offering us so much of your story and so much of an alternative way, and just not as mainstream as sometimes we feel we have to follow. It's just really refreshing to hear two happily married, good parents running awesome businesses. So thanks, you guys, for being on the podcast. And what we always end with on the podcast is, until next time, encouragers, we got this.
Hey, encouragers! If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you've had the scene where you're crying because there's no way you can meet all the roles in your life, I've been there. I've so been there, but I'm not there anymore. And I know how you can get out of that slump and start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at equippedtoexecute.com, also on my website at shoprSD.com, and it's also available on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone, and please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.